This video is about the Golden Spike National Historical Park. The first two videos are from where I visited 2 years ago. It was in the winter, so essentially the park was closed, didn't get to see anything, and they housed the engines inside during the winter. In these first two videos, he talks about the two different engines and the fact that the ceremony was supposed to be May 8th, 1869. It wasn't until May 10th because of a mishap you'll hear about. And also, these engines are replicas of the original two engines. So they had to be built by hand from old schematics. And since there are no parts, there's a machine shop in the engine house. So anytime anything breaks and needs repaired, the engineers have to manufacture the part to build it, because you can't go to AutoZone and get pieces when they break on these 1800s trains. And that's what they do during the winter, is do all the maintenance and repairs on the engines.
Have you seen the television show Hell on Wheels?
No.
All right, so the guy selected to come out here and represent the Union Pacific was Dr. Thomas Durant. He was the vice president of the company, and he wasn't a terribly well-liked guy. He did a lot of shrewd business practices, which upset some people. So when he was coming out here, he stopped in Piedmont, Wyoming, which is now a ghost town over by Evanston. And at this town, a bunch of very angry railroad workers came out and they kidnapped him. And they changed his train to the tracks. And it turns out he hadn't paid these guys in 90 days, and that's why they were upset, which is understandable.
Yeah, I understand.
So when they got, he paid them off, and then he got here to Utah, and he's going through Weaver Canyon. He gets to the Devil's Gate Bridge, and the bridge had actually been damaged by a flood. And the engineer says, hey, I can't get my 60-ton locomotive across that bridge, it'll collapse it. But the cars should be light enough that the bridge will hold. So they got the cars across, and then they send a message to Ogden saying, hey, the boss is here, he needs a lift, send your first available locomotive. And the 119 was the one closest to the main line tracks, so that's the one they sent. And so neither of the locomotives were supposed to be here for the ceremony, and they're probably two of the most famous locomotives, and they're both, just here by accident. The other really cool thing is the Golden Spike. They engraved the completion date of the railroad on it, and it says May 8th, 1869 on it. But the ceremony was on May 10th. So these guys showed up on time, ready to party, gold spike in hand. They'd already put the date on it. And then these guys were 2 days late because they built shoddy bridges and they didn't pay their workers. So that's why there's a typo on the Golden Spike, kind of a fun fact.
Now I have to go back. Now you make me go back and buy a Golden Spike. Go back there.
I usually have like one of the replicas, and I used to pass it around to people to read, but it's really hard to read because it's in gold and it's in cursive. It's like, what is this? But yeah, it says May 8th on it. It's got the wrong date. Middle. But anyway, it was a special run locomotive, so it wasn't on the original published schedule. So when it was coming here, the train that it was following was flying green flags on the front of it, which are a signal to people out there on the tracks to let them know there's an unscheduled train behind me, so don't go onto the tracks, it's not safe. Well, there were a bunch of guys up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. They were working on the railroad, and they saw that first train go by, but they didn't see the green flags. So they went back to work, and they were chopping down trees to make railroad ties, and they dropped a tree right across the tracks just in time for their boss to smash his train right into a tree. So they said, wow, we can't show up with a broken locomotive. So when they got into the next station, the Jupiter was there and it was ready to go, so that's the one they brought here.
Off in the distance, you can see the Great Salt Lake. Starts down near Salt Lake City and extends all the way up to almost Promontory. Because of the droughts that's lasted over the last 10 or so years, about a fourth of the Great Salt Lake has been dried up. After these sets of pictures, there'll be videos of me riding the western tour of the rail bed. It's a 7-mile trek. There was a park ranger sitting at the beginning of this. The sign states vehicles only, no RVs or ATVs. She did not recommend I ride my bike because the rail bed is very soft. And it was somewhat difficult, but I did it. Also, when you're watching this, it looks like I'm going fast. I'm only doing 15, maybe 20 miles an hour. So just keep that in mind as you're watching me drive down this very soft road bed or rail bed. And this is about a 7-mile stretch that I'm riding on. Enjoy.
I'm traveling on the old Transcontinental Railroad rail bed. This is through a cut. This is an area they had to fill in so the rail was level, flat, not level, it was a slight incline. This rail bed goes up there and then curves around that hill. This is about a 7-mile ride along the old rail bed, mainly for cars only. However, we didn't recommend I do it on a motorcycle because the rail bed is soft, and for the most part, it does take both hands to ride through here, because I'm sliding all over the place. When I was here about 2 years ago during the winter, this was closed, so that's why I wanted to do it now. But, that's the road to go get back to from the visitor center to the start of this Western Auto Tour. The valley that this railroad goes through. Just went through another cut and then fill area where they had to bring the rail bed up from the ground level. There's a rancher moving his cows. Finally hit an area where they probably didn't have to do too much filling. They could just level it out and lay the ties and rails through this section. The Golden Spike National Historical Park is about an hour and a half north of Salt Lake City. And as you can see, it's out in the middle of nowhere. And what this park represents is where the Central Pacific coming from San Francisco and the Union Pacific coming from Omaha, this is where they met. The original was supposed to be on May 8th because of a mishap with the Union Pacific and a kidnapping and hostage. So the Union Pacific railroaders would get paid. They kidnapped the owner. I think his name was Durant. It's been a while since I've been here, but I believe that was his name. They held him hostage, and it was delayed 2 days. So the actual ceremony was on May 10th, where the two trains met up here at the visitor center. This is the end of the auto tour, riding the trail bed, the rail bed. The old rail bed continues straight on up where visitor center. This is the Jupiter came from San Francisco, the Central Pacific Railroad. When they bring the engines out, they don't meet. The only time they do that is on May 10th of every year when they have a reenactment of the ceremony back in 1869. So here they threw a switch and it's going to come down. He's getting ready to throw a switch this way. He's going to come down this other side rail and right where people are standing right there.
You heard that approach whistle, one long and then one short. Now the last whistle we'll hear will be the stop whistle, so please everybody be aware that when the locomotive comes to a stop, it will blow its whistle once for stop. Alright, the operators are going to jump out and throw a chain around that big slide wheel. At that point, it is safe to approach the locomotive. We ask that you please not touch these locomotives. They're very hot and take a lot of effort to keep looking so nice. While you're walking around these giant symbols of progress,
There's the ceremonial sign.
what progress means
And this is
Certainly the
where they
technology
stopped
that
and had the big
locomotives mean
ceremony.
a lot to our nation, but progress means different things to different people. So I hope that we can consider that technology isn't just blindly progress, but I think that progress means more than just technology. In 1869, just coming out of the Civil War, civil rights may have been part of that definition of progress to people 154 years ago. On behalf of everybody here at Golden Spike, thank you for coming out. The next demonstration round will happen at 1.
These are talking about the 4 ceremonial spikes and where they came from. Piles over there, and there's some sage-grouse that just took off, but over there was the last cut they made.
These last pictures are signages that are around the park. You can pause these to read and zoom in if you'd like. This is if you like history and trains, and this is definitely an interesting and educational park to go to. And these are the replicas of the 4 spikes they used in that ceremonial tie. I hope you enjoyed this video.